You're sitting at a restaurant celebrating a friend's promotion, and everyone's ordering appetizers and cocktails without looking at the menu prices. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're calculating, not because you can't afford it, you probably can, but because you're suddenly aware that you're in your 30s now and you have no idea if you're doing this right. Your 20s were about figuring things out. Mistakes felt temporary, bad decisions felt reversible, but your 30s, they feel different. Like the stakes just got higher and nobody sent you the rule book. My name is Anderson, and I've spent years observing the invisible architecture of financial progress, not what people say they're doing, but what actually separates people who thrive in their 40s and 50s from people who spend those decades in quiet panic about whether they'll ever be able to stop working. And here's what I've learned. Your 30s aren't about making more money. They're about making the right moves with whatever you're making. Because the decisions you make or avoid making during this decade create consequences that compound for the next 30 years. Most people think financial success is linear. You earn more, you save more, you eventually retire, but it's not linear. It's threshold based. There are specific milestones that, once crossed, fundamentally change your financial trajectory. Miss them, and you spend the next few decades trying to catch up. Hit them, and you build momentum that carries you into a completely different kind of life. Today, I'm going to walk you through the milestones that actually matter in your 30s. Not the ones that sound impressive at parties. The ones that quietly determine whether your 50s are about freedom or fear. Milestone 1. Zero consumer debt. Let's start with the one nobody wants to hear. By your mid-30s, you should be carrying zero consumer debt. Not manageable debt, not low-interest debt, zero. That means no credit card balances, no car payments, no personal loans, no furniture financing, no 6 months same as cash arrangements you're still paying off 2 years later. The only exception is your mortgage, if you have one. Everything else needs to be gone. Here's why this matters more in your 30s than it did in your 20s. Your 30s are your peak earning acceleration decade. Your salary is higher than it's ever been, and it's likely still climbing. This is when promotions happen, when career shifts pay off, when side hustles gain traction, and if you're still making $800 a month in debt, payments $400 to credit cards, $400 to a car loan, you're bleeding your highest earning years into interest payments that build nothing. Let's do the math. $800 a month over 10 years is $96,000. Not $96,000 towards something you own. Just gone. And that's before you calculate what that money could have become if you'd invested it at 8% annual returns. We're talking about $250,000 in lost wealth over a couple of decades. But here's the deeper issue. Consumer debt changes how you make decisions. It forces you into defensive mode. You can't take career risks because you need the steady paycheck. You can't walk away from bad situations because you're trapped by monthly obligations. You can't invest in opportunities because your cash flow is spoken for. Eliminating consumer debt isn't about being virtuous. It's about creating the flexibility to make moves that actually build wealth. Milestone 2, a credit score above 780. Next milestone, a credit score in the 780 to 850 range. Not good enough, excellent. Now, I know some people preach that credit scores don't matter if you're not borrowing money, but unless you're planning to pay cash for a $400,000 house, your credit score is going to cost or save you tens of thousands of dollars. Here's the real-world impact. Let's say you're buying that $400,000 house with 20% down, financing $320,000. With a credit score of 780, you might qualify for a 6.2% interest rate. Over 30 years, you'll pay about $377,000 in interest. Now drop that credit score to 680, not terrible, just not excellent, and your rate jumps to 7.2%. Same house, same down payment, but now you're paying $455,000 in interest over the life of the loan. That's $78,000 more for the same house because your credit score was 100 points lower. The gap between good and excellent credit costs real money. And the cruel part is that one late payment, even by mistake, can drop your score by 80 to 100 points and stay on your report for 7 years. Building and maintaining excellent credit requires almost no effort. Pay everything on time. Keep credit utilization below 10%. Don't close old accounts. Don't open new ones unless necessary. That's it, but most people don't do it because it feels low priority until they're sitting in a mortgage broker's office, realizing that their forgotten $40 cable bill from 3 years ago just cost them $50,000. Your credit score is silent until it matters, and when it matters enormously. Milestone 3, 8 to 12 months of expenses saved. In your 20s, the advice was 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. In your 30s, double it. You should have 8 to 12 months of living expenses saved and accessible. Why the increase? Because your life is more complex now, more variables, more potential emergencies, and more opportunities that require quick capital. Your 30s are when houses need major repairs, roofs, HVAC systems, foundation issues, when kids need braces or medical procedures, when aging parents start needing financial help, when careers require sudden pivots that involve temporary income drops. But here's what people miss about emergency funds. They're not just about emergencies, they're about options. When you have a year of expenses saved, you can negotiate job offers from a position of strength. You can say no to toxic work environments. You can take calculated risks starting a business, switching industries, relocating for opportunity without the desperation that turns risk into recklessness. The emergency fund is freedom in liquid form. And in your 30s, when life starts presenting both threats and opportunities simultaneously, that freedom becomes the foundation for every major decision you make. Without it, you're reactive. With it, you're strategic. Milestone 4, 2 to 3 times your salary in retirement accounts. By 35, you should have roughly 2 times your annual salary saved for retirement. By 40, 3 times. So if you're earning $70,000 at 35, you should have around $140,000 in retirement accounts. At 40, that should be $210,000. Now, before you panic about whether you're on track, let me explain why this milestone matters so much. It's about giving compound interest time to work. If you hit $210,000 by age 40 and continue contributing $10,000 annually at 7% returns, you'll have about $1.8 million by 67. That's the power of starting early and staying consistent. But if you're 40 with only $50,000 saved, you'd need to contribute about $25,000 annually, more than double to reach the same endpoint. The math gets harder every year you wait. Your 30s are when retirement stops being abstract. It's not some distant concept anymore. It's 3 decades away, close enough to visualize, far enough away to fix if you're behind. This is also when you need to stop thinking about retirement contributions as percentages and start thinking about them as dollars. I contribute 8% to my 401k sounds responsible. But if 8% is only $5,000 annually and you're 37, the math says you need to be contributing closer to $12,000. The percentage feels comfortable. The dollar amount forces you to confront reality. Milestone 5, lifestyle discipline after raises. Here's a milestone that's harder to quantify, but just as important: developing immunity to lifestyle inflation. Your 30s are when income typically jumps. Promotions, job switches, performance bonuses, and every time your income increases, there's this almost gravitational pull to increase your spending to match. You get a $10,000 raise. Suddenly, your current apartment feels small. Your car feels dated. Your weekend routine feels cheap. And before you've consciously decided anything, that $10,000 raise has been absorbed into $10,000 worth of new monthly expenses. This is how people making $150,000 feel just as broke as they did making $70,000. The number changed, but the structure didn't. The milestone is this: when your income increases, you capture at least 50% of that increase for savings and investments before your lifestyle expands to consume it. Got a $12,000 raise? Great. Immediately increase your retirement contribution by $6,000 annually, or add $500 monthly to taxable investments, or accelerate debt payoff. Lock in the financial gain before your brain invents new ways to spend it. This requires automation. You can't rely on willpower. You set up the increased contributions the same month the raise takes effect. You remove the decision from your future self's hands. Because here's the thing about lifestyle inflation: it's easy to expand. It's nearly impossible to contract. Once you're used to the nicer apartment and the better car and the fancier restaurants, going back feels like failure, even if logically you know it would be smarter. The people who build serious wealth in their 30s aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who capture their raises before lifestyle expansion eats them. Milestone 6. A 30-year financial plan. By your mid-30s, you need a comprehensive financial plan that extends to at least age 65, not a vague sense of goals. A detailed plan. This includes knowing exactly how much you need to save for retirement, what your target retirement age is, how you'll fund your kids' education if you have them, what insurance coverage you need, how your estate would be handled if something happened to you, and what tax strategies you're using to keep more of your money. Most people resist this because it feels overwhelming. But here's what a plan actually does. It converts anxiety into action items. Instead of lying awake, wondering if you're saving enough, instead of guessing whether you can afford something, you calculate. A plan doesn't eliminate uncertainty. Life is inherently uncertain, but it eliminates the paralysis that comes from not knowing where you stand. For some people, this means working with a financial planner. For others, it means building detailed spreadsheets and doing the math themselves. The method doesn't matter. What matters is that you stop operating on assumptions and start operating on data. Because without a plan, every financial decision is made in isolation. You contribute to your 401k without knowing if it's enough. You pay down debt without knowing if you should be investing instead. You save for your kids' education without knowing if it's compromising your retirement. A plan connects the dots. It shows you how the pieces fit together, and it gives you the confidence to make big decisions without constantly second-guessing whether you're doing it right. Milestone 7. Health as financial asset. Here's one that financial advisors rarely mention. By your 30s, you need to be treating your health as your most valuable financial asset. This isn't about vanity, it's about economics. The average American spends over $400,000 on healthcare over their lifetime. If you can reduce that by even 25% through prevention, better nutrition, regular exercise, stress management, not smoking, you've saved $100,000. But the bigger impact is indirect. Good health means fewer sick days, more energy for career advancement, sharper cognitive function for better decision making, better sleep, which affects everything from judgment to emotional regulation. Your 30s are also when your metabolism changes. What worked in your 20s, eating whatever you wanted, skipping exercise, surviving on 5 hours of sleep, stops working. Your body starts demanding maintenance. And here's the cold truth. Fixing health problems in your 50s costs vastly more both financially and physically than preventing them in your 30s. You don't need to become a fitness influencer. You just need sustainable habits. Move your body consistently, eat mostly real food, sleep enough, manage stress before it manages you. The money you invest in health now, gym memberships, quality food, maybe a trainer, is the highest ROI investment you can make because it protects and amplifies every other financial decision you make. Milestone 8. Education funding strategy. If you have or plan to have kids, your 30s are when you need a clear education funding strategy. Not panic, not guilt, strategy. A 4-year public university now costs about $100,000 total. Private universities can run $300,000 or more, and those numbers are increasing at roughly twice the rate of inflation. You don't need to fund 100% of your kid's education, but you need a plan for what percentage you will fund and how you'll get there. This is where 529 plans become powerful. Money grows tax-free, and withdrawals for education are tax-free. Many states offer tax deductions for contributions. It's essentially a retirement account for education. Even modest contributions compound significantly. If you save $200 monthly starting when your child is born, you'll have about $75,000 by age 18, assuming 7% returns. That's a substantial portion of a public university education. The key is starting early and being consistent, because if you wait until your kid is 12 to start saving, you've lost the most powerful years of compounding. But here's the critical point. Education savings should never compromise your retirement. You can borrow for education. You cannot borrow for retirement. If funding 529 plans means you're not maxing out retirement accounts, you're doing it in the wrong order. Secure your own financial future first, then help your kids. Milestone 9. Estate Plan Basics. By your mid-30s, especially if you have kids or significant assets, you need basic estate planning documents in place. This means a will that specifies guardians for your children if something happens to you, power of attorney documents that designate who makes financial and medical decisions if you're incapacitated, beneficiary designations on all accounts, and possibly a living trust depending on your situation. Most people avoid this because it feels morbid, but estate planning isn't about death. It's about ensuring your wishes are honored and your family is protected if something goes wrong. Without these documents, courts and bureaucrats make decisions for you: who raises your kids, who manages your assets, how your estate gets divided. All of it gets decided by people who don't know you or your values. Basic estate planning isn't expensive or complicated. For most people, online tools can handle simple wills and power of attorney documents. If your situation is complex, blended families, significant assets, business ownership, you'll want an attorney. But something is infinitely better than nothing. This milestone isn't about you. It's about protecting the people who depend on you. Milestone 10. Financial confidence. The final milestone is the hardest to measure, but possibly the most important: developing genuine financial confidence. This isn't about having a specific net worth. It's about understanding your numbers well enough to make decisions without constant anxiety or second guessing. Financial confidence means you know, not guess, but know whether you're on track for retirement. You know how much house you can actually afford. You know whether you can take that job that pays less but offers better growth potential. You know if that investment opportunity makes sense for your situation. It means you stop comparing yourself to others because you're clear on your own goals and progress. It means you can have a bad market year without panicking because you understand volatility is part of the process. This confidence comes from having systems in place, from tracking your numbers, from having a plan that adapts as life changes, from making enough financial decisions that you've built intuition about what works for you. Some people develop this confidence on their own. Others benefit from working with professionals who can provide perspective and accountability. The path doesn't matter. What matters is reaching the point where money stops being a source of chronic anxiety and becomes a tool you understand how to use. Because that confidence, that quiet certainty that you're making progress, even when it doesn't feel dramatic, is what allows you to enjoy your 30s instead of just surviving them. Here's the truth about your 30s. They're your compound decade. Not because you suddenly get rich, but because the habits and systems you build now determine what your 40s, 50s, and 60s look like. Miss these milestones, and you spend the next few decades in catch-up mode, working longer, saving harder, carrying stress that didn't need to exist. Hit them, and you enter your 40s with momentum, with options, with the financial foundation that turns the second half of your life into something you design rather than something that happens to you. These milestones aren't punishments. They're not impossible standards designed to make you feel inadequate. They're navigational markers. And if you're behind on some of them, that's okay. You still have time. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Because your future self is waiting, and they're either going to thank you for the discipline you showed now, or they're going to wonder why you waited so long to start. The choice is yours, but the window is closing.